I'm Senator Gladys Robinson, and joining me is Senator Michael Garrett, and we are pleased to be with you this afternoon, but we have to make opening apologies for the others of our colleagues. Those in the House were called into session at 5 o'clock today. We think it's by design. Of course, we don't have any control because they do have to be there. You're aware that if they were not there, it's possible there could be an override. So we do understand. Senator Gunn has said that he has business. I did hear from him. I've not heard from Senator Tillman, but he did say he has business out of town. So at any rate, we thank you for coming and being with us. We know that it is our obligation as your representatives to report to you, to let you know what is going on in Raleigh. I'm sure you keep up, but we want to come and talk with you about what's going on and hear your concerns as well. So this is our second time this session, and we appreciate the opportunity. We're going to proceed as we usually do. Both Senator Garrett and I will make some opening comments. You realize that we are in the midst of a budget. The budget has been written by the House, then the Senate. There is a concurrent budget, and that the governor has his budget, and the budget at this point has been overwritten by the governor. Has been vetoed, I'm sorry. We're waiting on an override. Has been vetoed by the governor. So that's kind of where we are. The other piece that you should know, if you are not aware, is that the state is still functioning. We're not like the federal government that shuts down if we don't have a budget. We passed a law last year that we would continue to operate. So currently, all of the state-funded services are operating on the 18-19 budget. So they're still functioning. Of course, there are no increases for new numbers in school systems and universities, any increases, et cetera, but the state services continue to function. So thank you for that. So I'm going to stop and say that we do have a few people who've signed up. If you want to sign up to speak for 2 minutes, there's someone at the back. We have both the assistants from my office and Senator Garrett's office who will give you forms to sign up, and we have a couple of handouts for you, one on Medicaid and one on the proposed budget items for Guilford County. So if you'll get those as well, we'll proceed. So I'm going to stop now and yield to my colleague that I'm glad to have with me, Senator Michael Garrett, to make opening comments, and then I will come back and make a few around the budget, and then we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Senator Robinson, and thank you to everyone for coming out tonight to share your thoughts and opinions and ask questions of us about what is going on in Raleigh. To be brief, I am relatively new, a member of this delegation. And when I went to Raleigh, I had illusions of some bipartisan cooperation and collaboration in an open process for creating the state's budget, which is not just a dollars and cents document, but it's also the largest policy document our state adopts in a biennium. Unfortunately, the process was business as usual. It was done behind closed doors without collaboration from community stakeholders and community leaders and members of the minority party or the governor. Governor Cooper, in the very beginning of this session, had asked both the Speaker and Senator Berger to sit down and help craft the budget on the front end. Time and time again, his hand was slapped back. And you know, the governor is elected by all the folks of North Carolina, and his voice is very important in developing the policy of our state. So it was no surprise that when the General Assembly adopted its budget, it was missing a lot of key things that the people of North Carolina voted for in this last election. You know, critically, raises for teachers, investments in our classrooms, a statewide infrastructure bond that will fund schools, community colleges, the universities, regional water systems, and closing the Medicaid coverage gap. And so when that decision was made, knowing that all of those key issues would be left out, that our caucus in the Senate and the governor's office said, without that being incorporated in the state budget, we wouldn't be supporting it. They passed the budget anyway, and it was vetoed by the governor promptly. He promptly made a counter proposal that I think was very reasonable and responsible. It said, you know, we're already one of the best states for business. Let's make North Carolina also a great state for our children and our families. And so we said, we're going to pause on any more further corporate tax cuts, but we'll go ahead and cut the personal tax rate. But we're going to put before the voters to pass a statewide infrastructure bond. We're going to give teachers, on average, an 8.5% raise, and we're going to close the Medicaid coverage gap. That proposal was made 23 days ago. And to this day, we have heard nothing but crickets. So the fact that people are saying Governor Cooper has one issue that he is fighting for is nonsense. The fact that he is absent from the table is nonsense. The absence is the Speaker and Senator Berger. Not to be too political, but that's the reality on the ground. And I think that we need to come together as adults, be responsible, and pass a budget for all the people of North Carolina. And any pressure that you all can put on our colleagues, and including us, I welcome that, and that's why I'm happy to be here this evening, and I wish that the House members could be here with us too, to hear what your concerns are and what your thoughts are and how you think we need to proceed and move forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senator Garrett. And just to hit a couple of highlights where we are, you realize that depending on which budget gets through, it's about $24 to $25 billion that the state funds for services across North Carolina. But some of those critical things that Senator Garrett mentioned, the teacher pay increase, which is very important. And the other couple of things are the masters. What the governor proposes is to pay teachers for their master's degree, and also to pay substitutes, which teachers have been paying out of their pockets, which is very important. Plus, pay raise for state employees, for UNC personnel, increased cost of living for retirees to 2% rather than the 1%. So there are some very important things, as well as funding for early childhood development and clean air and water proposals. So there are some very important things that the governor is insisting happens in North Carolina in order to have a quality of life. Some of you saw him yesterday as he was here in Greensboro for the Honda Jet, launching its new jet, and the significance of that, as well as he attended a roundtable. Senator Garrett and I attended a roundtable with Medicaid people who would be Medicaid expansion recipients, but people have severe health problems and no health care. And so he sat and he listened. And if anyone were there to listen and hear the folk who have severe problems, cancer, all kinds of problems, say that they've suffered and they don't have health care. And through no fault of their own, these are people who were working. They were working, but have no health care because we refused to expand Medicaid in North Carolina. He was here to listen to their concerns. And so you need to know that the governor is moving across the state. He's listening to concerns of citizens, and he is standing firm that the most important things are quality of life issues for our citizens. Now, we also gave you a handout for, and we really appreciate the work of the Cone Health Foundation along with Kate B. Reynolds and others in terms of the Medicaid expansion report they do. Everyone across the state has used that, and you have the one on Guilford County, which indicates that if we were to expand Medicaid, I should say when we expand, because we affirm that we're going to do this, it means an additional 2,700 plus jobs and 35,000 plus people will receive coverage who are now without coverage. And it's an economic boom as well for our county. So it's important to our county in terms of what it does for Guilford County. So we've given you the handout so you can have it as you go around to talk to people. And we've also given you another handout with some of the projects for Guilford County. Now keep in mind that none of us, you may hear people say, well, I did this and I did that. None of us did any of this by ourselves. So don't believe that, okay? None of us did any of this. One of the things we said this year is that Guilford County legislators were going to work together to support Guilford County, and that's what we've done. So these projects do not belong to anybody. Some were already being done, and others are projects, and the governor has committed in his budget to keeping these. Some of you asked me about the hurricane, tornado money and others. He's committed to keeping these things in the budget, so they will not be cut out. So we're going to stop there and allow you to share your concerns with us. We know that you keep up with what we're doing. And so we're going to hear from you, and we'll respond as best we can. So the first person I have is Ashley Allen. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Ashley Allen, 7611 Brisbane Drive, Summerfield, and I'm here on behalf of the early childhood workforce of Guilford County, which is about 2,300 teachers and staff that support almost 25,000 children every day for their family and caregivers to go to work. The availability of child care settings staffed with healthy and supported teachers is a critical component of Guilford County's economic health. And I come with two requests, and both would have positive impacts on the physical and emotional well-being of these children, families, and their teachers. I know that you do, but I'm going to urge you to support Medicaid expansion because most early childhood teachers currently don't have access to health care. And expanding Medicaid would mean they could bring more than their best self, a physically well self, into the classroom. While they don't have access to health care, resulting in coming in work sick or staying home without pay, it can take weeks to recover financially when your pay is low. Expanding Medicaid would provide the health care, but my second request is to please support S212, the H882 Early Childhood Workforce Bill. It is sitting in the conference committee, and we are so grateful that it has gotten as far as it has, but it's critical that it keeps moving forward. We know that you go back and know these people daily, and we are urging you to please keep it moving forward. Thank you for opening the floor to listen to your folks tonight, and thank you for listening to us who gave you the opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much. The next person is Sharon Hightower. And while she's coming, I want to recognize those elected officials who are here with us this afternoon. Of course, our mayor, Nancy Bond, Councilwoman Sharon Hightower, Councilwoman Michelle Kennedy, I did see her, School Board Member Kim Irby. Kim, where are you? Okay. And Judge Bill Davis. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Thank you all for coming out this evening.
Good evening, Senators. Thank you so much for being here. I'm here today, I'm Sharon Hightower. I'm in two roles. First, as a resident of 6 Bells Court, Greensboro, North Carolina, which is in Senator Robinson's district, and as the City Council representative for District 1, which is a majority-minority district. I first want to thank you for continuing to fight to expand Medicaid, because so many constituents in my district definitely will benefit, and the job increase will actually be a positive impact. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you for putting our $1 million bill in there for tornado recovery for housing, and I know as soon as the budget passed, we'll get our $1 million as well. So thank you for that, and then thank you for the SBE, Small Business Enterprise Program. We hope that we'll be able to get that as well. So now, while I thank you for that, let me just switch gears real quick. And unfortunately, House representatives are not here, but I'm here because I oppose House Bill 971, which is the privatization of alcohol. In my district that I serve, it is a low wealth district. It does not need private alcohol sellers. And so while people are talking about we need less government regulations, there are government regulations that are in place right now that allow us to have alcohol responsibly. But what will happen with the privatization of alcohol is opening up and letting alcohol flow freely along corridors like Random Road, where you got already 8 convenience stores, and you'll have 8 convenience stores that could sell alcohol, including the drugstore and the grocery store. And so we need to make sure this does not happen. Please ask House not to support HB 971. It will negatively impact our entire community, but especially my constituents in my district. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're being flexible with timing because we only have a few of you here tonight.
I wish I'd known that.
So thank you. That wasn't for an additional 2 minutes, Councilwoman. Next speaker is Tyler Beal.
Good evening, Senators. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I hate that your colleagues were not here as well tonight. My name is Tyler Beal, 415 Guilford College Road, Apartment C in Greensboro. I live in Senator Garrett's district. I just want to put on the record that I do appreciate both of your full support for the expansion of Medicaid and hope that that continues. Just had a question on election security and wanted to see kind of what was going on from your end and see if you guys can kind of discuss that a little bit further to see what kind of money might be put forward in terms of helping counties make sure that our elections are secure for this upcoming election. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, so if you're asking about what's going on with the election in terms of the machines right now and the whole process, neither one of us serve on those committees. I do know that there is, for Guilford and I believe Mecklenburg, you have to change the voting machines out by a certain time, but I'm not sure where all of that is right now in terms of going to paper ballots and all of that. I'm not sure exactly, but we'll research and find out and get back to you. I don't want to give you wrong information because I'm not sure, and I don't see Charlie Collicutt in here, do I? Okay, so we'll find out and let you know.
And I'll just add, briefly to that. I am on the Redistricting and Elections Committee in the Senate. I don't know how I got on it, but I did.
Why did you say that?
Well, you were doing such a good job, Senator. I didn't want to interrupt. But that responsibility right now is delegated to the State Board of Elections, which is going through a process of reviewing the machines. And we have a kind of a hodgepodge across the state of counties using different machines, and certain machines, and I'm pretty sure Guilford County is one of them, where the company no longer exists. So when it has to be repaired, they have to find a used machine somewhere else. The other ripple to choosing what machines to upgrade to is uncertainty around federal regulation, because there are also federal regulations of certain specs for voting machines. And there were some changes to that was in the bill that the House passed earlier this session in Washington that is in the graveyard of the Senate right now. So the state is also delaying as long as they can to see what happens in Washington, because what they are afraid of is making a decision, purchasing and acquiring machines and laying out around $30-something million, and then Washington makes a different decision, and then our machines are out of compliance. So the next election cycle, we have to do that all over again. So that's why they're slow walking the process. It's not because it's not important to the State Board of Elections. They're just trying to go as far through the process as they can, so we make sure we don't have to buy machines twice.
Okay, thank you, Senator Garrett. The next speaker is Kim Irby.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and Michael Garrett is my representative. I'm at 1414 Adams Farm Parkway. Of course, I'm concerned about education funding, and I'm really looking for a long-term solution and the possibility of the school board being able to have some type of taxing authority. We are constantly being hamstringed between now waiting for the state and the county commissioners, constantly having to go and ask them to fund what is their citizens, right, their future citizens, and them not funding the superintendent's budget when it's not even enough. We're not asking for nearly enough. And there's so much repercussions behind the buildings that are falling apart all around us. I just kind of feel like our schools are really in a state of an emergency, especially what has happened at Brooks Global. God forbid if something has happened, continues to happen in a ripple effect around the district. I mean, it's telling a story, and I'm very grateful that children so far have not been in the buildings. When the tornado happened, children would have been in the building had it happened that Monday. So we've been very blessed and very fortunate that children have not been in the buildings in Guilford County. So I'm hoping that you would consider some type of aggressive plan where the schools would be able to generate our own funding stream, and that we would not be continued to be put in these predicaments. And also we're being held accountable. People are looking at the school board for everything and to fix everything simultaneously. $800 million in maintenance repairs that I inherited as becoming a part of the school board. So I'm looking for a long-term solution in that regard. I did notice that A&T is getting $18 million for one building renovation. What we could really do with $18 million for 126 schools in Guilford County. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we've heard that, at least I've heard that since Dot Kearns was on the school board, the taxing authority, and I'm sure it comes up across the county. But you might look at your own process in terms of how you're able to corral that kind of support from citizens to come to us with that kind of request. Just a recommendation. So thank you so much. And thank you for the work you do, Kim. The next person is Robin Lane. What? Oh, she's out. Okay, we'll wait till she comes back. Michelle Kennedy?
Oh, sorry. I'm not used to being on this side of it now. Michelle Kennedy, and I'm a Greensboro City Council member at large. And first of all, I want to say how grateful I am to have legislators such as yourselves representing Guilford County. We're grateful for the work that you do. And there's been a lot of conversation about Medicaid expansion, but there's another piece as it relates to Medicaid that I'm particularly interested in, and that's the 5-year demonstration project for 1115 waivers. That was announced that North Carolina got that in October of 2018, and anticipating RFPs to go out for that program at the end of 2019 with implementation in late 2020. And what that really means, and just to kind of bring it together, it's a way to look at social determinants of health in a different way, and North Carolina has said that we're looking for 2 to 4 demonstration areas and geographical locations for that. And I'm just here to lobby to make sure that you two are raising your voices for Guilford County to be one of those areas. What that means in reality is a child who presents with asthma in a doctor's office, the housing conditions of that child get assessed. And it means that repairs can be made to a house if there are things that are causing that child's asthma. It means that people that live in food deserts can get interventions that relate to their inability to access healthy foods in the places that they live. It means that a woman fleeing domestic violence can access services in a different way than she can now through the use of Medicaid. So again, I just want to say thank you for all that you do, and just to raise for both of you as the geographical areas are identified for 1115 waivers and that 5-year demonstration project, to really fight for Guilford County to be one of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll take opportunities to comment as they come up, and we normally don't do all of that. But Michelle, let me say, one of the things that managed care is going to do, and you probably already know that, is to, with the Medicaid itself, as opposed to being administered by the state, will begin to be administered by 4 different insurance companies, and there's an enrollment manager as well. So what it means is that an individual, for the general public, because you probably don't know as much as Michelle, she works in that area, and I've worked in that, so I understand. But an individual with one health condition may have other social determinants like lack of food, housing, no air condition, no transportation, etc. And those companies, now the insurance company, will have to make sure that individual has all of those support systems so that they can access health care. And so that's one of the good things about managed care. We're a bit concerned right now about rolling it out by November 1 in Guilford County because budget 1 and also not enough information. So on August 26th, Senator Garrett and I will be sponsoring a forum first with providers, physicians across the county, to explain to them what is going to happen as they get contracted with these insurance companies. People can keep their providers. And secondly, with social service agencies like yours, so that they, as a conduits for beneficiaries of Medicaid, can help those people to move through the system. So thank you for your comments, and we'll continue to work on that. The next person is Kay Brown.
Okay. Now, I'm not a public speaker, but I did have some concerns today, and I will give my full, government name just in case you need it. So my name is Lakeisha Brown, and I live at 5420 Sky Hill Drive. So first, I just want to thank you guys, even though you're not my representatives, for voting correctly on the Medicaid expansion, or going to do the right thing on the Medicaid expansion, because it makes a difference for millennials who do not have access to care. And also, thank you for the tornado relief, because I do live on the east side, and that was something that was absolutely devastating. I know you can't do anything about us losing our early voting sites, which we hope to get back, but we do appreciate that additional funding. But I did have an additional concern that if it comes across your desk, I hope you'll turn it down or speak not so highly of it, but for the House Bill 971 for the privatization of alcohol sales, as a resident, a home buyer, someone who has lived in North Carolina all of my life, I went to college here, I work here, my kids go to school on the east side, I do not want to see my community turn into what I've seen in other places where there's a liquor store on every corner, where there's a police officer on every corner, and where it could possibly, once I finally bought my home, saved up, did all the things that they said to do in American Dream, then have my property values go down because, again, people have put privatization before the actual quality of services that I'm getting in my community, and I hope that makes sense. So my representative, Mr. Hardister, is conveniently never really there when I need to see him and have some words with him, but I did just want to speak on, if it does come across your desk, please do not vote in favor of this. I live on the east side. It is not something that we want. It is something that we will be out and speaking and knocking on doors about, and I just hope that if you do have the opportunity to speak on it, that you will do the right thing on it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kenya N. Donaldson.
Good evening. I'm Kenya Donaldson, 2406 Wheatfield Drive, Greensboro. As we examine the impact of a Medicaid expansion, I have several questions. We have narrowed our coverage gap to about 5%, a little bit less than 5%. 5% is still a lot for our students. I'm a public school teacher. It's a lot for our students who have chronic health issues, for our staff members who are falling within those gaps in Guilford County schools. 5% is a lot, and it impacts learning, it impacts our communities. My question is, if the Medicaid expansion is passed, to what extent will it impact that 5%? What number do we predict of individuals in our communities that will no longer have medical coverage?
So if you look at the sheet you have, and Senator Garrett, you can chime in, it says an additional 35,000 individuals. I do not know off the top of my head how many people in Guilford County don't have health insurance, but what I'll say is that the intent of when the Affordable Care Act was passed, the intent was to close the gap between those who could afford private insurance, whether from their employer or whoever, those who were on Medicaid, who had that income level or that disability, et cetera. And so the intent of Medicaid expansion was to close the gap for those who were in between, who did not make enough money to buy private insurance, or had too much money to qualify for Medicaid. So that's what Medicaid expansion is intended to do. I can't answer you in terms of the exact number, but I would say that the intent, our intent and the intent of the state once we pass Medicaid expansion is to make sure that we can work as close as we can with every individual to make sure they have health care. And I know that's the Secretary Cohen, her intent is she came out of the ACA Act out of Washington. She worked to help to put the Affordable Care Act together. So that's her intent, to make sure we can help bridge those gaps.
Well, I want to thank you for continuing to stay the course with regards to Medicaid expansion. What I do ask is, after it is passed, because I'm fully standing here anticipating that it passed, that we examine the impact of our marginalized communities and how many are left without coverage, and what we can do to ensure that all of our citizens are covered on the other end of this passing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has Robin Lane returned? Robin, okay.
Senator Robinson and Senator Garrett, I am among those who are very grateful that you are here and appreciative of all you do for us. Thank you so much. Our ability to know that you care about us by showing up and listening to us is really very important. So I wasn't going to speak. When you called on me before, I was sitting. I had submitted a question that I hoped would be addressed maybe in writing at your convenience, but I'll ask you now. I'm one of those folks who understands, I think, what it means to not have health care, because I have 2 children who would not be covered were it not for the special provisions of the Affordable Care Act, and one who is still waiting for Medicaid expansion to take care of her. I'm very concerned about what it means when we say health care is a right, and then we say on the other side of that discussion that we need to have a work requirement as a compromise. For the child who's now an adult, I won't name her, I'd like to respect her privacy, but I know she would be comfortable with my telling you that she has had challenges with a mental health issue. And for her to have to declare that she is depressed in order to gain what her sibling has because her sibling is married to somebody who has health insurance through an employer seems an unnecessary degradation of her personhood. So that's my concern and my question for you. I do want to also say that as a pediatric nurse practitioner, retired, I really understand the connection between family health and what Michelle Kennedy spoke to, our ability to have social determinants of health. Children grow up, live, play in a safe environment, to have their teachers covered with adequate health insurance, to have them go to a school that's free of mold. All of the concerns you've heard here today. We have CHIP, health insurance for children, but if their parents are sick and tired and unable to fully care for them, we've lost a lot of productivity in our school system. So I see all of this as connected, and I see that when you do the right thing, when we do the right thing as a state, when we finally are rather than to seem, I think that's our state motto paraphrased, we really can put people back in a much better, healthier place where they're really going to work hard for North Carolina and for each other. So I'll end with a thank you and that question about work requirements. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your question, Robin. And I think when we talk about Medicaid expansion, we have to realize that is just one component of what really is ailing us as a country when it comes to health care, because health care is too expensive and inaccessible for a lot of communities. You know, the reality when it comes to the work requirement that is part of, let me back up. There is a House version of Medicaid expansion called Carolina Cares that has been authored by Republicans, Representative Lambeth from Forsyth County. In that proposal, there is a work requirement and there are premiums as a part of that, as a component of Carolina Cares. Personally, I oppose both of those as a matter of public policy, because we can look at 37 other states across the country, and those states that have instituted a work requirement or premiums, it really fails miserably. It creates an undue burden not only on the patient but also on local governments when they have to do reporting and the administration of that. So I oppose those as a public policy standpoint. But I think, you know, we are the minority party still, and compromise is the key word right now. So I can't say that Medicaid expansion, whatever passes this session, will or will not have a work requirement, will or will not have premiums, because I think there's going to have to be some give and take on both sides to see what ultimately that end result looks like. And if it is not what Senator Robinson or I think is good public policy, I will promise you this, and I will commit to you this, that the rest of the time that I serve in the North Carolina Senate, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that we do make it right in the end.
And I certainly just want to echo what Senator Garrett has said. You know, the Senate Bill 3 that I sponsored and he signed on to and others did not have a work requirement because we understand, and I certainly as a community health professional understand the importance of health care that does not have those kinds of requirements. So the perfect bill is what we did. However, as he indicated, that the governor and his staff now are looking at how they may negotiate with Republicans, and we don't know what that's going to look like. So we're going to stay vigilant. We've made it clear to them what our preference is. But if we have to take steps, then we'll do that. It's been a long time to get us to the point of Medicaid expansion. Gosh, and that shouldn't have happened. We've lost money in this state. We've lost lives in the state. Just doesn't make sense. So we're going to work with the governor, encourage him to remain steadfast, but we know he has a job to do to try to get us to some point with Medicaid expansion. So Robin, we heard you. And we really sincerely support that. Do we have anybody else who did not sign up who wanted to make any comments this afternoon? Sir, would you, after you come up and give us your name, address, et cetera, if you'll sign a form so we'll have a record, we'd appreciate it.
And let me just add one thing while the gentleman's coming up. I hear often, you know, people will say, well, why is a work requirement a bad thing if we say most of these people that will be covered by Medicaid expansion are already working? And the reality is, when you look at that population, a lot of them hold 2 or 3 jobs. They often change jobs because they're in the service industry. They might do ride share. And so every time they change a job with a work requirement, then they have to go report it. So it creates, and then it has to be verified. And so it creates a lot of burden on the patient, but also on local government. So as you're having conversations with people that would ask, why is a work requirement such a burden? Those are the kinds of issues that we're going to run into from the patient standpoint, but also from local government standpoint.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Joe Waters. I live at 5622 North Lake Drive in Greensboro. And I just wanted to speak for one of the most marginalized communities that can't speak, and that is people with disabilities. And I have a stepson with autism, and he is 22 years old, but he is the light of my life. I'm probably more of his manservant than best friend. He has a father who cares for him and a mother who cares for him. But we see an erosion of benefits and services that are provided to Chandler, and it seems like the privatization of his services is in the not too distant future. And I would just ask you as our representatives to keep in mind to, if you can, try to halt that as much as possible, because that community has no voice. And I have seen instances where, for lack of qualified care workers, 3 months ago, my son was viciously slapped at the Autism Society because they did not have the proper funding to vet employees. I have seen and visited home facilities for these children where they eat romaine noodles and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And it just seems, as we hear in the news, where they look at doing a voucher system for these children and people in that community, that just will not stand. Not as a Christian nation or not as a nation as wealthy as we are. We have plenty of resources, and I trust you will fight for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate hearing that, and any specific complaints, please call one of our offices so we can see if we can help you with that. Any others? If not, we're going to make final comments and let you go home. I hope it's not storming outside still. But we really appreciate you coming. We were afraid we wouldn't have anyone here when the tweets went out about the House being in. But know that we care about you too. in terms of your opinions as well as sharing information with you. So we hope that what we've been able to share with you will be beneficial as you circulate throughout the community to tell folk what's going on. And we'll certainly take your comments and concerns back, investigate what's going on. We wrote the specific questions we have to investigate down, so we'll get back to you. But we appreciate your support. We appreciate you voicing your concerns. Both of us have cards there. You know how you can reach us individually. And I need to say that the members of the House have indicated that they will have a town hall, and if Senator Garrett and I can work our schedules, we'll come back with them as well, too. We want to, as much as possible, be a full delegation. That has been my commitment to you as chair, that you will have a delegation working together. So we'll come back whenever they come. I don't know a date because they just said that today. So we want to thank you, and if there are no other questions, anything else, Senator Garrett?
No, I will just echo all of your sentiments and thank everyone for coming out tonight, and also just want to reiterate what a true honor and privilege it is to serve and represent Guilford County and work and fight for each and every one of you and your families. And please don't wait for a town hall to reach out. If there's anything that we can ever do, we stand ready to help and assist on any issue that may face, that you and your family may face. So thank you again for coming out, and thank you for trusting us to fight for you in Raleigh. And we look forward to seeing you again in a few weeks.
And good night.